Thank you for the intro. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Armani Caffè. We are your last panel of the day, your last thing before the rosé, so just hold on for another 30 minutes and hope you enjoy the panel. My name's Alex Blundell-Jones. I'm Senior Sales Director at LG Ads, and I am joined with a star-studded panel today, and our topic is connecting with consumers. A really nice topic to dig into. So I'd like to start with each of my panelists introducing themselves, and we'll start from the left and work left.
Hi, I'm Sean Corcoran. I am the U.S. CEO of Mediahub. We are one of IPG's media agencies, focus on clients like New Balance, Netflix, Chipotle, and the NBA, and a few others.
Yep, Ashleigh Gibson here, head of mac and cheese. What a title. It's very fun. My last title before that was like head of burger, so they make it very interesting at the company. But we're talking about the mac and cheese portfolio, U.S. retail. It's about $2 billion in sales across a multitude of formats in the shelf-stable part of the aisle, multiple brands. So it is an interesting place to be right now, given the state of the industry.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Stuart Schorr, Vice President of Communications for Jaguar Land Rover in the U.S., and I oversee all customer-facing marketing activities for what we now call our four brands, which are Range Rover, Defender, Jaguar, and the Discovery brand. And we handle everything from brand experience to the creative content to social media to the public relations and the CRM.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the intro. So let's get straight into it. It's safe to say we live in a very fast-paced world. Consumer behavior and preferences are changing at a tremendous speed. For brands and marketers, balancing selling to your customers today and ensuring you have your future customers in mind is no doubt a very challenging task to think about. Sean, starting with you, if that's okay, how do you see brands interacting with consumers in the future? And is there any practices or good examples of things they could do today to make that transition more effective?
Yeah, I think from the agency perspective, our job is paid media. So for us, there's a lot of talk, and I think we're going to talk about personalization in a bit. So that's obviously a big focus for a lot of folks, and I think defining that will be a key thing. But, for us, I think it's all about, not necessarily focus too much on one-to-one, though that's a big deal, or going too far mass. We actually kind of look at it as, we're living in a world of platforms and people living in bubbles within those platforms. So how do we actually start to think about marketing to, I hate to say tribes, I think that's an old term, but I think just those groups of people where, they have passions, they have certain rabbit holes they're falling into that line really nicely with our brand, and how can we actually really connect on those levels, so it's kind of that in-between of personalized, but also with scale.
Okay, nice. And Ashleigh, from a Kraft perspective, anything you're looking at in this area?
I think it's very similar. Sean and I connected on this point, and I was really excited to talk about it. Like, our company is so focused on scale. It's a massive global company, and so finding the ways in which to reach new consumers that we haven't historically talked about, where we can have impact, it really does mean we need to go out into the world and find these tribes. And honestly, we could be a lot better about that. And so that's kind of the pursuit we've been on over the last year, making sure that we have very clear insights around who these people are and what is important to them. I think the other thing that is key in this space, right? Like, there's just going to be more platforms. So, like, I'm not in the business of, like, predicting what the next platform is going to be. I really don't have time to be able to do that. So it's like I partner with the best agencies, the best media partners to help us do that. Really, where I try to spend in my time and direct the team's time is understanding why people are there, what is really meaningful there, how to show up in the best way possible, so then we can drive relevancy and impact for the consumers.
And from a JLR perspective, we briefly spoke before we came on the stage, and I said, for a brand like JLR, perhaps you're building kind of brand reputation for 6-7 years out, and perhaps I was wrong. You need sales before 7 years' time, but great to get your view on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the car business is a long-term business. Everything about it takes a long time to decide what product you're going to build, design it, engineer it, bring it to market. It takes maybe 10 years. You predict is going to happen way in advance. And then we run as a business on a 30-day sales cycle. So that's the very short-term nature of the business. And we in the marketing department are trying to sort of go right in that sweet spot, which is about 12 to 6 months out from when the customer is ready to buy, and focus on that time. The other challenge we have is that the brands are quite well known. And so as any brand that has a lot of heritage, as Range Rover and Jaguar do, for example, it's both a cursing and a blessing and a curse, because people know you.
That is, balancing the privacy of the consumer, and I think that's a very tough balance to strike. Maybe over to you, Ashleigh. I guess, how important is personalization? Obviously, a big brand like yours, there's lots of ways you may want to engage with different audiences. How important is it today, and how have you balanced that between being personal but not overstepping the mark from a privacy standpoint?
I mean, if you think about the brand, we're talking about the most iconic brand in my portfolio, Kraft Mac and Cheese. It is one that people trust quite a bit, right? And so keeping that relationship with consumers and protecting that trust is really important. So that's first and foremost. I think the folks on the stage before us were talking about exactly this question: how do you have the balance? And I think we're all trying to figure out how to strike that between trust and taking risks, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more, but also balancing the short term and the long term. For me, personalization is required to attract the next generation of consumers. It's more diverse than ever before. But where I really struggle with the company, and where we're trying to thread that needle, is the effectiveness, right? And so we want the scale, we want the effectiveness, we want the return on investment, and sometimes being able to deliver against those metrics can be challenging to do when we're talking about one-to-one personalization. So we really have to find the balance between the two.
I think with personalization, you have to ask the question, you're talking about where in the funnel, what are we talking about? You're talking about people who are shopping for you, and then you're trying to personalize the ad content they see along the way? Or you're talking about a more personalized experience once they've already purchased your product, and then they're in your CRM database, and it's a little bit easier to be more personal and maybe even more important. We found we spent a lot of time looking at the personalization part, the pre-purchase personalization, and I'm not sure it's delivered the return on investment that maybe we hoped for. As an example, the idea that if you came to our website once and then you came back again 3-4 weeks later, does the website recognize that you've been there before and sort of start right where you were before? It's a nice dream, but there's also a lot of technology that goes behind it, a lot of investment. Other elements of personalization: you've been to our website, then we send you a CRM email following up, and we can say you started to build your car, configure your car in this color red, but you didn't finish. We wanted to show it to you again. And again, you're sort of going after this idea that if you showed a little bit of interest, then I can convince you to get over the line. And I'm not sure that pays as much dividend as just getting more people interested. I do question that last little bit of optimization in the digital experience, how much it pays off for a long-term product like mine, whereas it might be something different.
Yeah, and I think we don't define things well, right? That's part of our problem, and I think that's part of the issue with personalization. Is everybody here probably had a very different thought about what that means. Are you thinking Tom Cruise in Minority Report, where it's very one-to-one? Hey, you might like this. Or is it a little bit more, there's an experience you're having that we know that you have with some other people, and they're your human being, you might actually want to share that, but it's actually a little bit more of a unique experience for, again, back to that kind of tribe. I think it's more a little bit, it depends on the situation, to your point, like what's the context. But to me, I think we got to start thinking about, we have all this data, we have the idea of wanting to personalize across multiple screens, including the TV screen now. And how can we actually do that in a way that makes sense in that moment? And I think that's where we have to go as an industry right now, versus I think there are some people going down this very one-to-one road. Mm-hmm. And I come from a digital background, so for me, it's a lot of the people I know. They're just the right ad, the right place, right, sure. But I do think there's something to be said for experiences we all have together, and I think that's missing in advertising today a little bit. And I think that kind of stinks. Where it's I think we did a research study a year or two ago where just people can't name that many campaigns anymore that they can share with other people, and I think that's something that's missing a little bit that hopefully we can bring back, and it's a little bit more personalized on a community level.
Feels like in service of what? we're personalizing, but
For
in
what?
service of what?
It
right?
has to deliver some added value for the client. And in theory, maybe there's a little bit of advantage in some of the examples that I gave, but I'm not sure it might be worth the effort to get there.
Well, that's it. Is it worth the resources? Like for us, it's just on the media side. It's like how much more CPM can I add, and what am I getting for that? Now, if the cost is going to triple, your effect has to triple as well, and that doesn't always happen. Now we have Axiom at IPG, so I will note, it's very important to have that one unique ID. I will note that, but I think at the same and that allows us to do a lot of things. But if it's how much work are you going to do, and maybe with AI and generative AI that changes that. But right now, sometimes the cost isn't worth it. At certain levels, and we have some clients that really want, frankly, mass advertising, and it kind of works for some of them, depending on, like Chipotle is a client of ours in the U.S. You'll see them on a lot of live sports, NBA, NFL. They have incredible coverage. Chris Brandt, the CMO, say, if you have a mouth, I have a burrito for you. It's not that simple. We do some targeting on top of it. It's really smart what they do, but they have incredible coverage, and it works really well. The growth has been there. So, I think it depends on the brand and the context, but there are some clients I have that are just kind of like, what? I just need scale right now. I need to move to your point. Like you probably need move a lot of boxes, right? So it's like, how do we do that?
I liked what you said, Ashley, about tribes, and maybe that's somewhere in between one-to-one personalization and totally mass, which is identifying different groups and trying to figure out what motivates them and what they're excited about, what topics they're interested in. What kind of representation works best for them. I think there's so many different ways to do that. Instead of going all the way to one-to-one, maybe get somewhere in the middle.
You mentioned scale, emerging channels, connected TV being one, retail media being another. Stuart, this one's coming to you if that's all right. It'd be great to understand for a brand like JLR, very premium brand. How are you, I guess, including these kind of channels as part of your media strategy, and is it important for a brand like JLR to be showing innovation, to remain perhaps that scarcity aspect and that premium aspect? It'd be great to hear your thoughts on that.
And when you asked me earlier about the use of CTV, I assumed you meant cable TV. And I think it might surprise people, but TV is still really important. And it's still the medium that allows you to deliver these video content that has music, it has emotion, it has action, it has storylines, it has personality, and it can grab people's attention. You might have to do it in places that aren't, just streaming. Streaming has obviously taken off a lot of the marketplace for good video advertising, but I think there's a lot there in other areas. Obviously, sports is the biggest. That still generates a huge, massive attention. And the TV advertising, the video advertising is the only thing that I've done that really people come up to me and say they saw our ad. They saw our Range Rover Sport ad or they saw our Defender ad, because we most of the time do it well. Sometimes we have a clunker, but most of the time we do it well. So I think, yes, it's great to be innovative maybe in the targeting on side of that and using the technology for that, but I don't think you could lose sight of just the raw impact of really good video content on TV.
And you mentioned the previous point around tribes being something that resonates with you. Obviously, as a premium brand, you're trying to reach, I guess, ultimately premium audiences who can ultimately buy your products. How are you measuring your ability to reach those kind of audiences with your paid or organic media?
I mean, I guess we compare it, through our media agency, our media buying agency, in a very normal comparison way, and some of those mediums are you cannot measure them by clicks or responses necessarily, so you use a more traditional way. But we have actually done comparisons of like a highly, highly, highly targeted audience versus like a linear audience, and the scale of the linear audience sometimes is so big that it might just get more of your customers plus a lot of other customers watching an NFL football game than you would if you had such a highly targeted but niche audience. But that obviously has its limits, though. And so, for us, we have vehicles that are sort of upper luxury, but not our most premium luxury cars aren't on TV. So our Range Rovers tend not to be in that environment. But Defender, Range Rover Sport really gets a big impact from that audience. And then we do other things that are a bit more luxury oriented. We might be at Art Week in Miami or something like that. Some other places that are a bit more targeted and specific.
Can I add on retail media? So if you are selling at maybe for the U.S. people, the big retailer that has a very big media platform. If you're selling products in that space, like there is a understanding that you will be spending a lot of money on that platform. And so one of the challenges, I think, and you said it, you were talking about how awesome film is and like the impact it has. The creativity hasn't really hasn't really emerged on that platform yet, and I think it's a huge opportunity. I'm looking at my agency partners in the audience. I'm going to sign us up. But like, what if we brought that same level of creativity to retail media? Because the reality is, like, if you're selling in, again, that retailer or other ones that are here and showing up, there's an expectation for you to spend dollars there. So we need to make sure that they're not just efficient dollars, but they're actually creatively impactful dollars. And that link is missing.
Do you think you really got to work with the retailers and that stuff? Because they think so endemically, right? Which is natural. Do you feel like you really got to work with them to be like, hey, we want to try and do something different?
Well, I think I can force the conversation, right? Like what I do know is my buyer has a expectation for us to help her drive XYZ, penetration in terms of e-commerce, and I can bring creative solutions to that platform in a way that maybe a lot of other retail or CPG partners haven't been able to. Like we spend a lot of money on Walmart Connect. So why not bring the same level of creativity to that platform in the way that we do for our national media campaigns? And I don't really see anyone doing that. So opportunity.
We have the same challenge in the car business, obviously, because we co-op advertising. We partner with our dealers to have them spend money on advertising to drive demand in their local area. And, we want them to run is a standard issue. We want them to run our creative. And they want to run something that talks about a sale in the next 30 days. And we actually like them to hit their sales numbers in the next 30 days. So we sort of talk out of both sides of our mouth on that issue. But if we could elevate, everything we can do to elevate our retail advertising has a huge impact because they might, in the end, spend just as much money as we do nationally.
I think we've touched a bit around life cycle and short-term, medium-term, long-term. Ashleigh, when we were chatting earlier, really interesting around macaroni cheese being a product for everyone at different stages of their life. It would be great to share a little bit of wisdom, I guess, in terms of how you see that.
Yeah, so one of the things I love specifically about this category, it's one that really speaks to people at different moments in their life cycle. So for Kraft mac and cheese specifically, for many people in the U.S., it's one of the first foods that they have. It's often one of the first foods that they learn how to make. And then you go off to college, and it's probably one of the things that are showing up very much so in your repertoire in terms of really learning how to cook and feed yourselves. And then for new parents, the cycle starts all over again, which is theoretically very exciting when you think about that cohort continuing to be the same over time. What we're seeing as a big challenge is people are having kids later, so it means the gap between a good amount of consumption as a young adult or a teenager until having kids again is becoming greater and greater, which is problematic. But also, who the kids are and who the parents will be in the future are much more diverse than the cohorts we've been talking to for the last, 50, 60, 70 years, like honestly. And so it's a really interesting challenge that we have in terms of thinking about reaching young adults going into adulthood much longer. So making sure we have attractive product and communications, but also thinking about as this cohort of young people continues to diversify, how are we going to reach them? Because what we were doing 10 years ago is not going to work. And so we're really challenging our agency partners and our media partners to come along on that journey and starting to get really savvy about those diverse audiences so we can figure out smart ways to win together.
Awesome. Kind of going back to where we started a little bit on personalization and kind of tied to an ever-growing topic of kind of connected TV, advanced TV, whatever you like to call it. Sean, it'd be great to get your viewpoint from the agency. You've got lots of different brands with different products, different product life cycles. Like, I guess, how do you see a topic like personalization fitting into some of these growing channels like connected TV? And have any of your brands done any particularly good or interesting work that you'd like to call out?
Yeah, I think TVs, especially connected TVs, that really interesting inflection point. We're talking about personalization. You take a TikTok who does it almost too well, right, on that smaller screen, and it's like, I'm watching, watch one shark video and then it's Shark Week all the time for me. But it's like you're part of these kind of unseen communities for like into the rabbit hole, and you just fall into that. TV's at an interesting place because I think you take a Netflix as a client of ours. They're venturing into sports. So you could be a Stranger Things fan and be part of kind of that that always water cooler community you've always had, or you can watch some weird documentaries you might be watching and share that. And now they're into this kind of live events, which I think is a unique opportunity that they're bringing to the table. Like it's too bad the Tyson Jake Paul fight got postponed or canceled, because that is like the epitome of TV right now, right? You got an old guy in an old medium and a new guy from a new medium coming together in what is kind of a sport, but not really a sport. It's kind of a fight. It's not real, but it's kind of real. It's live, but it's on Netflix. It's just really weird. And it's kind of bringing all those together. So we have a lot of clients that are saying, hey, this is our future on a big screen. We have to take some of the things we've learned about reach and targeting and engaging on the big screen, which is different from the smaller screen. But then we have to take into account the opportunity to target and then these kind of weird kind of unique moments that are happening in that kind of medium. And we have a lot of clients truly just investing. I think right now it feels like early programmatic. But I do think we're going to see some more opportunities as some of Amazon now opening up, obviously much bigger, Netflix opening up. And so it gives partners like you obviously more inventory, more opportunity as well. So we can kind of attack it, and we're attacking it at multiple different layers, where it's going directly through the provider, through you guys, through kind of a DSP. So there's like 10 different angles we're taking at it. So it's a bit of a wild, wild west, but we see it as an opportunity, and we're doing it with multiple clients to get in and start to really think of that as our TV video plan, with some of the older stuff as more of the backup now.
Yeah, and I can add to that. Everyone wants to be on these connected channels. They are the channels that everyone's talking about the most. And so I think it is a new opening field. And we probably have more meetings with Amazon and Netflix these days than we do with anybody. In all these different mediums that you didn't expect to know you can advertise with before are now, really heavyweight players. And TikTok and all of them, they're on our doorstep every day. And probably maybe the biggest challenge is making sense of it all. But you have a media team that their media buying team, their goal is to sort of place a chunk of money in the market as efficiently as possible. Not speaking for all of you, but, and the more new ideas and the more new platforms that come in, the more confusing and hard it gets for them to make a stable, consistent plan. Mm-hmm. Yet we need to find a way to innovate and get into these new spaces. So maybe we need some sort of a rule of like 10% every quarter. We'll always be coming in some new mediums that we're not doing today, and keep trying. And then the old ones will come back again full cycle, and Pinterest will be in our doors next time, and so forth.
What's exciting when you think about Kraft Heinz and how large it is and how many brands and global, we've been able to learn pretty quickly on some of these in some of these spaces, and so we've gotten some good return on investment on CTV. So that's been an easier conversation with my CFO, which is really nice. But I think what is the most exciting thing to me is again, we're trying to go after that younger consumer. It's more diverse. So for both our Hispanic consumers, Gen Z, I've asked the team, please bring me plans that really over-index here. Where should we be going? And CTV was at the top of the list for us, which was exciting. So it allows us to play in these new spaces, but also go after that cohort that we're trying to over-index with and really drive a lot of attention with.
Awesome. You mentioned segue off the CFO point there. Our last question, I think we've got about 5 minutes. So marketers, brands, generally, it's a tough balance between delivering results in the short term, be that sales, engagements, and balancing the long-term brand building play. Bit of an open question to all of you on this one, and we'll start with Stuart, if that's okay. How do brands balance that? And based on your experience, what has been good tools that you've used to
Well, I just think also just the mention of the CFO while a bunch of marketing people are here in Cannes is just we shouldn't even mention them. They shouldn't even know we're here.
I'm sorry.
I think first as marketing people we have to be able to speak their language. And I've personally had a lot of success being very close to our sales team, being very close to our finance team, and understanding their issues, speaking their language, getting them excited about the marketing projects that we're working on, and sort of earn their trust with a very heavy ROI, short-term focus in order to get the permission to do the really fun, exciting, brand-building, big-picture stuff. And so recently we signed a deal with Live Nation to be sponsor of a number of different music festivals across the country. And that was a really big deal, and includes advertising, includes obviously live physical brand activation, includes social media and all that. And we were asked quite a lot of questions by our finance team. They wanted real proof that this would work for some other marketing. And we said you're going to have a little bit of patience and a little bit of confidence in us. But to be in the room with them and have their respect, I think that's the key.
Yeah, showing them the business case and getting them on the journey. Ashleigh, anything you'd add to that? No? Okay. So, Sean?
I'll just add, I think for me, it's discipline with focus, right? I think agencies and clients, I see it, it's like one day I'll have a brief and it'll say ROI. The next month I'll have a brief, it'll be brand awareness. Next month I'll have a brief, it'll be brand preference. And all this happened within 6 months. I'm like, we did not move these metrics. And why are we changing them? Why are we looking at something new? I know it's hard to have that discipline, but I think discipline and focus on what are we trying to do.
We're guilty as charged.
Yeah,
we change every quarter,
I
every
know.
6 months.
Public companies, the harder ones, obviously, but I just think if you can push people on, hey, we're going to focus. I think it's similar to what you're saying. It's like learn their language and go, this is going to get to that, right? If we keep getting brand favorability up and we keep seeing search lift or whatever other things that we think are going to lift our business, can we focus on these? It's hard to do. And then the other one is just do the work. Like there's just a ton of data. You got to have a good analytics team, good intelligence team that kind of can balance not only like doing the data crunching and showing you the dashboard and all the things. That's wonderful. Now having AI and all these, machine learning and all the things, but also kind of the curiosity to say, hey, let's go have some hypotheses to look around and see what might actually move this business's needle and back to like what's going to make the, the CEO, the CFO, whoever happy.
Awesome. Well, I think that is a great way to finish, make the CFO happy, so we can all come to Cannes next year.
That was not planned. That was not what we were supposed to end on, but it worked.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to my amazing panel, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.